Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to, or welcome back to, another episode of Haunted Gaming R. On this episode, I'll be reading in a word for word style a classic Team Fortress 2 creepypasta named Team Fortress 2 Play Dead. So, suspend your disbelief, grab your overpriced hat, and let's spawn on into Team Fortress 2 Play Dead. I'd like to share an experience I had with the game of Team Fortress 2. It was about 9 p.m. on a Monday, I think about 2 weeks ago. I had decided to play a multiplayer match on TF2, so I signed on and started up the automatic server selection for play modes. I felt like playing some capture the flag, so I selected that option. My computer lagged a bit while it was searching for a server, which isn't abnormal as my laptop is fairly distant from my router. But eventually it found one. I've only been playing TF2 since a little after it became free, so I don't have a very big server history, nor any experience with server mods or servers in general. But something seemed rather odd about this particular server. Once I gained access to the server, the loading screen came up with a bar on the bottom right. As the bar got to about 70%, it jittered backwards and paused. It started going back and forth between 45 and 60%. The game froze up after a few moments, so I decided to force quit the game. I went to get something to eat and come back to the game, started it up, and decided to play it from my server history. I noticed a new server added to the list. TF CTF Playdead 905, or something along that line. After the events I'm about to explain, the server disappeared from my list and history, so I'm going off plain memory here. I tried this server, and similar to before, the load bar jittered for a bit. However, it managed to completely load this time. Usually, when you enter a custom server, there will be some sort of splash page to welcome you to the server and advertise their site or briefly explain the rules. In the case of this server, however, the splash page was black. There was nothing on it. I started to think something was wrong with my graphics card with all the strange things that was happening, but decided to continue on. When the game loaded, I select Pyro as my class and I enter 2 Fort. For those of you who have never played Team Fortress 2, here's a brief explanation. It's a team-based online multiplayer FPS game, and in this particular capture the flag mode map 2 Fort, you have 2 fairly large mills separated by a little lagoon and a bridge, and an underground network of pipes that you can enter. The objective is to obviously capture the opponent's flag and return it to your base. For this server, there were 2 teams of 6, and upon me joining, both teams became full. The game was already mid-progress and everything was working normally. Our team, the blue team, had already scored 1 point, and we needed 2 more to win the game. The red team had 0 points. This particular game didn't have a time limit, and we seemed to be going back and forth for about 14 minutes with little to no progress. Occasionally, members from our team would type angry messages to the opposing team, accusing them of being cheap and having like 4 engineers in their flag room with turrets, making it almost impossible to get their flag and making the game seem endless. Up until now, things have been relatively normal, until I started noticing that for about 5 minutes I had been going around the level and I have not seen a single one of our team members, nor any other players from the other team. People were still talking in chat, however, so it kind of took a while for it to sink in that I hadn't seen anyone at all for over 5 minutes. I thought that it had been some sort of strange lag problem, so I asked the other players if they were having the same problem, and the general response was no. But one other player said he hadn't seen me for a bit either, and was also confused about that. About 6 more minutes had passed and I had started to grow pretty bored. I decided to make one more good round throughout the level before I would disconnect and find another server. I left our fort and fell into the lagoon in the middle and proceeded to enter the red team's pipe network. After the little room underground in the middle of the tunnel, there was a really long pipe that leads into a staircase going up to the base at the end. I noticed an enemy team scout was standing there, but he wasn't moving, just standing there with his bat out, staring at me. A strange form of relief swept over me that the game started to work again. I charged at him and began to shoot my flare gun. The shots went right through him, and when I approached, he disappeared completely. Really bad lag, I thought to myself. I ascended the staircase. As I entered the base, a strange static sound started to replace all the other in-game sounds. I made my way through the base, and as I got closer to the flag room, the static got louder and louder until I couldn't hear anything else in the game at all. This is when things started to get really weird. I asked if anyone else heard the static, and I did not receive any reply in the chat. No one has said a word since I saw that enemy scout in the pipe tunnel. I managed to get to the room adjacent to the flag room with the 2 holes going into it, and I could hear some sort of murmuring behind the static. As I went down one of the halls and turned the corner, I noticed there was no flag room. It was plain black, like the hall led into the game's void, or all the textures and lighting were reduced to 100% black. I shot a couple of times and my bullets landed as if there were walls there, so I entered the room anyway. I saw the flag and picked it up. When I turned around to leave, there were no halls. Everything was black, and the UI was still up on the screen. It said I had their flag, but there was nothing to the level, and all traces of the level disappeared. I tried again to get an answer, explaining my problem in chat, but there was still no response. I stood in the room, or lacked there for about 3 minutes until suddenly the game froze and the game ended. But the message didn't say if anyone won or lost, and the announcer's voice was all distorted and not understandable. The scoreboard was also broken when I tried to check it. The game's loading screen quickly came up and it said downloading Playdead 0090, or something along those lines. It took about 17 minutes to download and it was a really big file. When it finished, the black server screen came up again and I went to the class selection and selected Spy. The level loaded into something completely indescribable. I tried to save a screenshot, but every picture I tried to save said error and print screen didn't work. The level looked rather black and white and very glitchy. The textures on the walls were kind of like 8-bit blocks, but really distorted. It was almost as if I was playing a 3D version of a static snow screen on a TV. I went through the level and asked in chat, "What is this map?" But there was no response again. I checked the player list, and other than my name, everyone else was named I'm Dead 1, I'm Dead 2, I'm Dead 3, etc. I've never encountered anything like this before in any other prank game or made for fun hacks. It kind of reminded me of Majora's Mask, but this is an online game with what I thought had secure servers. I decided to give it a few more minutes and explore the level, which was a really large maze, oddly shaped tunnels, and there were no sound effects whatsoever. Nothing I did caused a sound, and eventually I came to a really long tunnel with what I imagined was at the center of the level. The tunnel had darkness at the end, and it almost seemed endless. As I was walking for at least a minute in one direction with no change to the map, I decided to turn around and go back, thinking the map was glitched, and at the moment I turned my camera and saw the enemy scout I saw earlier, except something was very wrong with it. His eyes were black. His left arm was rather deformed and bent in impossible directions, and his legs reminded me of a crab. I almost jumped out of my seat at the sight and typed "WTF is going on" hurriedly in the chat log, but there was no response. I stood there and stared down the strange scout. After several moments, the other players started talking in the chat, but all that appeared was corrupted garbage text. The scout quickly approached me and in a sudden, through regular fashion, and I heard a very, very loud burst of static, and all of a sudden it kicked me out of the server. I went to check the server and it was gone from my history. Naturally, I immediately shut off the game and haven't played it since then. I think it was some sort of prank, but it was pretty creepy, and game hacks usually don't creep me out. Update, July 13th, 2011. After posting this, I decided to play the game again. I went into my server history to find a King of the Hill map, but I noticed that TFCTF Playdead 905 was back. But this time it had 0 out of 16 players. I went to the server and, unlike before, it loaded normally without any issues. It was 2-4 like when I had entered it before, but there was no other players on the server. Nothing seemed really out of place, and I walked around the map for a while, finding nothing. The only thing I noticed is that there was this strange glitch on sound effects every now and then when selecting a character. There was also static noise that kept repeating. And when I went to the tunnel area in the lower part of the base, I thought I heard footsteps. I shut the game down a few minutes later, and I'll try it again another time. Who knows, maybe I'll get some footage. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, was Team Fortress 2 Play Dead. I think the moral of this story being, don't play on 2-Fort, not only because it sucks, but also because something like this might happen to you too. Tell me what you thought about the story in the comments, and suggest future episodes too if you're so inclined. Other than that, till next time, I'm out.